Hello and welcome to my channel again. Today I shall be reviewing a series that's very close to my heart. So close in fact that if I have to pick the top 5 books of all time that I've ever read, I would not just pick one but all the 12 of the books that belong to the series. In fact, I don't think anything similar has ever been attempted in the genre since. The first part of the book was published in 1962. So what is so amazing about this series of books? Well, it is a science fiction series. However, unlike any other story in the genre which deals with say an alien invasion or exploring a new planet or galactic wars, even a massive space opera like Star Wars. Unlike any of that, these stories take place in Sector General Hospital. Yes, so Sector General is a multi-species hospital, specialty hospital set in the galaxy, which caters to all intelligent life forms. And these stories follow the challenges that the doctors and the staff of that hospital face as they treat each new patient, similar to House or Grey's Anatomy, but just with a whole variety of species. And what I also loved about this book is that there doesn't seem to be any bad guys. There are no villains, and the story just follows the challenges, the actual scientific problems that these people deal with as they help their patients or try to cure their patients. And also the scale, the pure scale of that hospital with all the different life forms, most of whom don't even breathe the same kind of air or interact with the same environment, same way with the environment, is breathtaking. And that is where James White introduces this brilliant classification system. So every species is classified into this four-letter classification system, which identifies the number of their limbs, the type of air they breathe, the pressure, gravity, and temperature requirements, based on which the different sections of the hospitals are customized to their environmental needs. And these needs can be so drastically varying. For example, there are these crystalline life forms that evolved on a frozen planet, and they thrive in sub-zero, like near zero, absolute zero temperatures. And then there are these life forms that breathe the superheated steam, and they need this mecha like kind of suit every time they have to interact with other people or other species. And what's also interesting is that not just the patients in the hospital belong to such a varying variety of species, but also the staff. So there are staffs of all kinds of species treating all others, which is very, very interesting. And that also raises the question of how does so much knowledge get contained in one individual? For example, I could be a earth human doctor trying to treat a completely different life form, and I would need to know the physiological data or the knowledge of that particular life form, and there are tens of thousands of such life forms being treated in the hospital, and that is where the educator tape system comes. So it's basically all the knowledge of a leading physician of a particular species, which gets transferred to an individual or a physician of another species. But the caveat being that this mental transfer of knowledge does not just transfer the knowledge, but also the personality of that individual. this presents an extreme another challenge. Like, for example, say I'm a human doctor having an educated tape of a life form that lives in the say a bird like life form which lives in a very low gravity environment. I might feel like a bird myself unless the tape is erased. So I'm doing the surgery on a patient with that educated tape, which is impressed not just the physiological information but also the personality of that bird-like species. I might feel like a bird myself. I might feel that the gravity requirements of my environment are too heavy, and I have to put up with it till the patient is treated. That just happens to be one of the side effects of being a physician in such a big, massive, multi specialty facility. And there are also a few challenges presented where you probably would not want to eat the kind of food that you eat as a normal person or normal individual of your species, being mentally feeling like another. So many things. And also yeah, so that's and interestingly, one of the highest levels of physicians in the hospital end up being diagnosticians who do original work in xenological medicines, and they have more than 5 or 6 educated tapes, feeling like 5 or 6 different personalities at the same time, with extremely varying environmental and psychological profiles. So that was very interesting, and to think that all of this was thought through in the 1960s is very, very impressive in my opinion. Not just that, James White was a visionary in terms of so many other things. One, for example, the creatures or the staff and patients of Secretary General, even if they are meat eaters, do not consume actual meat. The reason being, I could be having chicken, whereas intelligent life form which looks bird-like might feel offended at its physical resemblance to a bird being consumed by some other species, and we may both be the staff or part of the same team. So that it's considered rude and offensive to eat something that looks similar to a colleague, for example. And that's the reason the staff and patients of Secretary General who consume meat are given synthesized meat. Why do I say it's ahead of its time? Because veganism, which have become popular these days, and meat substitutes, meat lookalikes, which have become popular these days. James White had it going all those years back in Secretary General, and not just that. There is a very central character of the series called Major O'Mara. He is the one who usually gives the main character these little missions to go on, and his position in the hospital is that of a psychologist. He is one of the highest ranking officials in the hospital. And why is a psychologist ranked so high? Because James White identified the importance of mental health. I know that the stigma associated with mental health is still it's still not completely gone, although there's a lot of awareness going on. But the James White reasons that the one of the most important criteria for a staff in Secretary General is to remain sane, and is to not lose their mind when they go through all these educator tapes, dealing with people who are radically different in appearance, perhaps in culture or in the way they interact with the environment, who dealing with all that, to not be xenophobic, to be inclusive, to not be intolerant, takes a lot of mental aptitude. And yeah, Omar's job is to make sure that no one loses their marbles, no one becomes hate-filled, racist, exclusionist in that hospital, because the message there is not to fight for your species, or not to fight for your planet, or to prove your power. It's harmony, and the challenges presented are challenges of nature itself, which is awesome, which is amazing, and which I think would be the natural course of any civilization that evolves to the point where it colonizes, and and is able to master, colonizes a space basically. So yeah, and another thing that I loved was the reasoning that, in order for a civilization to be spacefaring, in order for a civilization to actually be so technologically advanced that it can, interplanetary travel becomes not just possible but second nature to it, it has to have unified all the resources of its planet, which is only possible if the species in question has set aside its individual differences, to become one unified, phase of the planet. So, which is very, very true. Take Earth, for example. We are still not space faring yet, probably because, we have NASA, we are having great strides taken. But just imagine what would happen if every country were to pour its resources, the resources that are being directed towards the defense and war, if all of that resources were directed to be to colonize, say, Mars, or say Moon, or in space technology, where would we be? Where, if one country can make moon landing possible, what would happen if every country were to pool together its resources? Is that a waste of money? Absolutely not. Any civilization at any point in time would outgrow its home planet, and a species with the kind of vision, with the kind of forethought, um, would know that the only logical way for self-preservation would be to leave its cradle. Um, yeah, because ultimately you are going to outgrow that cradle, and only civilizations that have realized that can truly be spacefaring, and to be spacefaring means that, you have understood how wasteful and foolish violence is, because when a species directs all its resources to conquering itself, it can only go so far. But if it were to do that to conquer nature, the possibilities are limitless, because nature is limitless. And that is the message that Secretary General tries to convey. And apart from that, there are so many interesting cases that are presented. For example, to give an example, there are these insectile creatures that live in a hive mind, and consume radiation. So they feed on radiation, and they share a single mind. And one of their spaceship, they have an accident with a nuclear reactor, and it happens to be and they end up getting, even though they consume radiation, the amount of radiation from the nuclear accident is too high, and there are many who end up having radiation poisoning. And Conway's first case is to treat a species that feeds on radiation and has radiation poisoning, and the solution is ingenious. So them being radiation feeders, he comes to the conclusion that they have actually got a case of indigestion, because it's not really radiation poisoning, it's just too much of energy intake, I guess. Yeah, so and there's so many other such cases where you discover a often unknown a life form ailing with the particular illness, and the interesting part is If you know what is normal about a species, you know what is wrong with it. And in Sector General, there are many species that are introduced which are new to the staff in the hospital themselves. So you don't know what is normal for that particular species. So how do you know what is not normal? And that forms one of the most interesting aspects of the 12-part series, because so many new species get discovered as part of the story. And as for the characters are awesome. The main character, Conway, absolutely love him. He is a brilliant physician who joins the sector general at the start of the first book, and grows through its ranks, and finally, spoiler alert, becomes a diagnostician. Conway is awesome because he doesn't take himself too seriously. He's really good at his job, but he's not mindlessly devoted to it. He loves having fun, he's easy-go-lucky, but is also quite sincere. So he's awesome. And personally, also my favorite character is Conway's friend and associate, Priscilla. So Priscilla is this insectile life form um, who has this empathic faculty. So species of that life form are empathetic. They can sense the emotional radiation of those around them. Now imagine being empathetic and a physician. What if your patient is in extreme pain? How difficult is that going to be for you? But also it can be quite handy. Say you can know with certainty when a patient is coming out of a coma or is about to slip into a coma. So Priscilla is awesome. It is such a polite, thoughtful, and intelligent creature that just reading the conversations between Priscilla and Conway or any other character in the book is mentally comforting. So Sector General is amazing. I don't think I've done justice to it ranting about it for the past 20 minutes. But if there's anything at all that you can take away from this video, I hope it helps you to know or discover that a book like this exists, because this being a fairly old series, I don't think you'll find it in a bookshop, but trust me, it is every bit the effort and time worth that you would invest in it. So yeah, I really don't know if I can ever do justice to this book, but I did try. And yeah, that is my review of Sector General. It's amazing. Go read it if you can. Buy it off of eBay or get it in a secondhand bookshop. It's awesome. Yeah. And as for the rating, well, as many stars as there are in the galaxy.